Hey Design Hub, this is Marco here, going over the Halloween Takeover once and for all. So I'm gonna go over my design process, and I'm gonna kind of wing it because I already showed you what the final looks like, which is right here. So I'm gonna pretty much do another version of that. As far as the beginning part, right here, this is more clips. There's nothing really. I'm going to show you how I did this, but there's nothing really out of the ordinary that I did here besides maybe making the 3D model and the background image merge. These are just little effects that I applied. But over here is interesting because I had to use one image to get all these layers broken up. So I'm going to do that for this takeover. So the first thing I have are these images that I went on Getty and I started finding, how can we work? And excuse me, I wanted to do something with clouds and this like spooky little atmosphere. Um, so I found this image. I found other ones. I found just regular clouds. That's the one that you guys saw. I have some trees and a back sky. I have a forest, and a lot of these can work for takeovers. It's like a field. And the one that I want to use is this guy right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this into Photoshop. And now I need to treat this in a way that's usable in After Effects. So you guys are designers, you guys are used to working in layers. But all these layers are pretty much for one image. Whereas in After Effects, you have layers, but then you're also working with time. And the layers can come in and out as you please. So for something like this, what I wanted to do is, first thing is I wanted to remove these bats because I wanted to use my own bats or maybe footage. And this moon, I wanted to make my own. So as you can see, I don't have the other side, so we're gonna go ahead and fix that. So I'm gonna use the patch tool. If anybody's not familiar with the patch tool, how you use this is pretty much you just draw around and you click and drag to something that you want it to mimic, let go, and Photoshop will mimic that. So next thing I'm going to do is now I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. So make sure this is a layer, Command J. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this cloud, which is right here. I'm doing this to soften the edges a little bit. I'm going in here to clean this up. Always be organized with your layers. So I need to take this moon out of here, but first I need a reference moon. So I know I have one already. Believe it's this guy. So let's go ahead and open this guy. And I'm literally going to just copy, paste, hitting opacity just so I can mimic where this guy is. Just trying to match the perspective a little bit. So now what I can do is I can move this guy anywhere around here. So now I got to fix all this. As you can see, if I was to move this moon around here, this would be a problem. So let's go ahead and fix that. Alrighty. So now that I have that, um, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this, and I'm going to start adding a little bit more. Maybe what I'll do is I'll probably flip this on the other side. Maybe really make this a little bit bigger. And all I'm doing is, this is just for perspective. So I kind of like the left side, so I'm going to leave it there. But I'm going to call it back cloud. So if we look at these as layers, I'm going to remove this. So since I have my moon, now I could delete this. I'm just going to go ahead and just clone stamp this. Instantly remove a moon. And now since I already have this piece, I can remove some of this stuff too, because now I have this. So now what I can do is I can take, let's say, this section. Let's go ahead and copy and paste. Let's go ahead and flip this. Let's make this a little bit big. Actually, though, let's leave this for a second and let's see if we can grab something. Let's bring this. I don't like that one. I like this one. Just move that little guy out of there. So let's leave that there. And let's put this in front. So now I have this by itself. So now I can have this moon somewhere here. And let's bring, this is the original one. So we'll delete that one. We don't need that one anymore. And now we have our own kind of like sky. And we have some clouds that we can add in here and play around with in After Effects in Z depth. So let's see what else we can do. So we're definitely going to need the logo. So I'm pasting this. And right now I'm thinking this would be kind of cool if, let me show you. So I'm going to make kind of like a little bit of storyboards. So I have this file, which is a Hollywood Takeover. Let's go ahead and open this guy up. Now this is pretty much the size that you need, which is 1080 by 1350 for Instagram. So this is the biggest size that Instagram can hold for right now, I guess, in its settings. So what I have is here is I have this file. Let's just close this. There we go. So what I have here is I pretty much recreated this. I took a screen grab, did an overlay, and I just kind of just replicated the Instagram post. Have all these icons. Now, why this is important? This is important because I can now, because I have all these in layers, in After Effects, I can animate each one. So let's say I wanted to have these type maybe like fall down on itself. I can do that now because I have all these in layers. So that's just an option. I'm not saying I'm going to do that, but that's just an option that we can do this. The green in the back is pretty much telling me what the underneath video would be. So if we're doing a takeover, essentially we would have to start out wherever the green is. But if we're going to go past this, or if this is going to move, we now have to make sure that whatever we do fills up this whole entire screen. And this is, I don't even know what size is this. This is humongous. So what I can do is I can now start populating this inside here to start making my frames. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and take all of this and put it in a group. Command G, and I'm going to call this Takeover. Drag this into the new comp. And as you can see, it's way too big. So I'm going to go ahead and scale this. It's about there. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and turn on everything and put this behind the background and turn this on. So as you can see, everything is enlarged, and that's because I started off with a large size, which is okay. So what I need to do is now I just got to make sure that I fit this in place. So I'm going to go ahead and turn these guys off for a second, and I'm going to open up my layers, and here's my logo. So I'm just going to make sure this just fits. So now we're designing. So how do I want to start and how do I want to end this? I created another file before. So how I'm going to do this is, let's go ahead and say Happy Halloween. And I found this cool little font. It's called Creepster. Just make these little icons smaller. Let's see if this looks cheesy. It's not bad. Maybe we could do something like that, and maybe the moon's here. Maybe we have, let's go ahead and use the heart. Could always add a heart somewhere. It's kind of cool. Let's go. Oops. All right, so what if we have Happy Halloween and how do we want to start this? Do we want to have maybe Happy Halloween here? Maybe the type comes out at screen, passes through this, and the camera goes through here. And as the camera's going through, so this would be starting, oops, let's make sure we put this in a group. So that's pretty much your bar. So if we were flying in, this would kind of come down, and this will kind of come and kind of go full screen, kind of like that. And as that happens, we can have maybe the moon. Maybe the moon's always here. Or maybe it's hidden at first. Actually, hold on, let me put this guy back. I don't want to misplace where this guy is, so let's just hide that. So if we're here, how do we want to start this? So do we want to start where the moon is here? And we have clouds. Or we could do something like this. We can have, this is the fun part, is coming up with what do you want to do. So if I have the moon hidden at first, let's say like this, we can have Halloween behind also. Let's hide that in there. We can kind of come out of the shadows. And then how do we want to start it? Do we start it with, actually we can have it like this, ready? So we'll have this logo here. Then we start passing, passing, passing. Then as we pass that, this will be gone. This cloud would be all the way down here. This cloud would move out of the way. Actually, we could probably have this here hidden or blocking everything, actually. That heart's got to be somewhere there. Kind of think I know what I want. Let's say we have the moon somewhere here. We have this covering it. We'll have this guy in here too. Just covering it all. I want to make sure I didn't delete anything. All right, cool. So I could have just kind of this covering, and then they kind of part like the C. This Halloween gets out of the way, and as that gets out of the way, you reveal Happy Halloween. I think that's how we're gonna do it. Okay, so now that I'm thinking of all that, now let me just go ahead and start labeling this. So this is the logo. Okay, I think that's all I need for now. This is pretty much a high-res file, so I'm just gonna save this, and I'll just call this Clouds Master, I guess. I'll just call it Clouds Prep. Oops. And this, I will go ahead and save. Let's make sure. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and save this, so we're good. All right, so now that we're done with that, let's go ahead and open up After Effects. All right, so if anyone is not familiar with After Effects, they will look at this and say, what the heck are you doing? So that's just some settings here. I'm going to go ahead and change this to standard, just animation. And I'm going to go ahead and import my file. So let's go ahead and import. And let's just go to Halloween. And it wasn't that one, it was this one. So we're going to go ahead and import this as a composition retrain layers, layer sizes. We're going to go ahead and create a composition, hit open. And here is our composition. And as you can see, everything is in either in a composition or a layer. Let's go ahead and fit this to window. First thing we're going to do, if anybody is not familiar with After Effects, let me just give you a quick little tour. So this is After Effects. Here is pretty much your project window. Here is where you would input your files, and you would see everything that has to do with your project. So as you can see, here's this composition, and the composition is called Halloween 19 Takeover. And if I double click on it, it'll open up in the bottom, and this is where it's called a timeline. And as you can see, I have a blue little swatch here, and this is how much in time are you going in the timeline. So as you can see, my composition is set to 7 seconds and 23 frames. So what we can do is, we already know we're going to make this take over, let's say 15 seconds. So I'm going to change the composition settings by holding Command K, and here's your settings, and here's where you can see your height, your width, your frame rate, your time code, and your duration. As you can see, is set to 8 seconds. We're going to go ahead and change that to 15 and hit OK. And we're going to move this over, and as you can see, the compositions also need to be set to 15 seconds, because if not, they're just going to get cut off. So how do we do that? We're just going to go ahead and double click on both of these, hit Command K, and change this. And I'm going to just speed by all of this. So I'll be back in a second. And we're back. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and import this folder that I have, or this project file, that it just keeps my After Effects project a little organized. So let me go to that. What I'm gonna do is just import this, and if I move this out, you'll see these folders. And these are just blank folders, but it just helps when you're importing in your footage. As you can see, I have a finals comp folder, I have a pre-comps folder, and then I have a footage folder. So if you open this up, you'll see I have a PSD, vector, audio, and movie file. Within movie file, there's also rough cuts, pre-renders, CGI, that would be 3D files, WIP, that would be work in progress. Elements is pretty much like assets, kind of like clouds, if I needed to import any kind of clouds, any kind of footage, anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and start moving this around. So I'm going to drag this into my final comps. And I'm going to go ahead and open these, and I already know these are PSDs, so let's go ahead and put this in PSD. Now it just keeps everything nice and tidy. So let's go and let's start on this. So the first thing we're going to do is everything is on, so we're going to go ahead and make sure, let's work with these layers. So everything is inside here, so we're going to go ahead and double click on here, and here are all my files. So here's the logo. Let's turn that off. Let's turn off the Halloween sign, and let's see what this looks like. So I could flip back and forth so I can see what it looks like on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these, I'm going to prep this into a 3D scene, kind of like a 2D half D, 2.5D. That's what they call it. So how do I do that? So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and toggle this and turn on these little boxes over here. So I'm going to go ahead and just click and drag. And as soon as I do that, I click on here, and you'll notice that there's anchor points on here, and now it has a X, Y, and Z position. But the problem is I don't have a camera, so I need to go ahead and add a camera. So we're going to go ahead and do that by going Layer, New, Camera, going to go to Settings. And one thing that I always do, and this is a personal preference, is if I go ahead and hit P for position. Actually, let's go back. Let's just toggle this, swirl this down. What you're going to notice is there's a point of interest and a position. What does that mean? So let me go ahead and change my view so we can see this. I'll go ahead and change this to custom view. And what you see here is this is my scene. And as you can see, there's a camera here, and here are my layers. But you see what happens when I move my position? When I'm in my position, the point of interest where that camera is pointing to or facing never moves. I don't like that, because what's happening is it's linked together. So if I wanted to animate both of these, I would have to animate the point of interest and the point of and the position, and that's just annoying. So what I like to do is turn that off by going control clicking, going to transform auto orient, just turn auto orient to off, and you'll see that just disappears. So since we're in this view, it's perfect, because now I can start showing you what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the background, which there's a little icon right here. This is the solo button. So if I click on this, it's going to solo out that one layer. And if I hit P for position, I can see my position, and this is where it is in this space. So if I toggle this off, and if I start moving this, so this is your X, Y, and Z. So Z, they're all the same. So if I hit P for position, you'll see that they're all set to 0. That means they're all same on the same axis. So if I take this one and I start moving this back, you start seeing it move. And if I move over, you'll see it gets on top of it. So we're going to move it back. And as we're moving it back, I'm going to also take the moon and the heart, and I'm going to link both of them together. And by doing that, I'm going to go ahead and parent this to the moon. So anytime I move this moon, that heart will follow. So let's go ahead and move this to the back. And let's take this front cloud and let's move this back. Let's take this back cloud and move it front. And now let's look at this camera. And it looks a little weird here, but let's look at what it looks like in the other composition. So as you can see, as soon as I do that, that background moved down. So I have to move that up or scale it higher. So I'm going to take this and hit S for scale. Let's just go ahead and scale this up. And I'm just going to move it a little bit more back too. And what I plan on doing is I'm going to go ahead and set up like just a quick little camera move. So I'm going to go ahead and hit P for position. I'm going to click on this time watch. This adds a keyframe. And I am going to go ahead and move, let's say 4 seconds for now. And I'm going to move in. And to play this, it's I'm on a PC and it's Control 0. So as you can see, I created a quick little camera move that's going in. So I can now see what this is. What does this look like? That's very weird. That is not working. Oh, that was weird. Okay, here I'm looking at it. Now here's a problem. Now I want this to move also, but the problem is my camera is on here, so that I have to take this camera and move it in here, or take the whole thing and just copy and paste it over here. There's different ways that you can do this. I think I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy all this, copy, and paste this here. Let's take this bar and put it on top. This is that comp. We don't need that anymore, so let's just delete that. This video is just that green screen in the back. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like. And this bar is not in 3D, so we got to make sure that's in 3D. So we're going to go ahead and click on this little box. And as soon as we do that, we see that this cloud is on top of that. So we can fix that by taking this cloud and just let's move this behind there. And as you can see, it'll start popping in. So I want to put it right in front and maybe just scale this a little bit lower. And as you can see, now it's starting to move. But I think this is too close to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start changing more the Z depth. So let's see how much I want to move in. I want to move in as much where this kind of gets out of the way. So let me go ahead and just start setting that up. Then I'm going to work backwards from there. So let's say right about there. All right, so I think maybe I'm going too much because what I could also do is I can go a little bit closer and animate this bar going down as I'm moving up. So let's go ahead and create that move. So I'm going to use 4 seconds for now, but I need to make sure I extend this to 15 seconds. But I just want to see this move at first. So I like to work smaller, like just quick, just so I can see how this would move. So let's go ahead and just move closer. And at the same time, I'm going to go ahead and hit P for position, record a keyframe. And as I'm going closer, I want to move this down. And let's also just turn on the background one, because that's the most important one, because we got to make sure we see all that. So what I'm noticing is this cloud needs to go far back because no one's ever seen this, and I have some pretty nice clouds. So go ahead and make sure I put that all the way to the back. And now let's go a little bit closer. Let's go ahead and fit. And I'm just going to move this back. And let's see. So now that's looking good, but I got to make sure that by this time, you should never see that. So this needs to be a little bit closer. Actually, that doesn't really matter because I can fake certain things. As a matter of fact, let's turn off this background layer because I don't want to see that. It's more blue, so what I can technically do is let's just move this back. And this little thing I'm just going to mask out so you don't see that harsh line. I'm going to hit F for feather, and I'm going to feather it out. So you can see it just feathers that out. Let's go ahead and turn on. Oh, let's see what that looks like. That's looking pretty nice. Maybe I'll scale this a little bit higher. Let's move this higher up there. Maybe I'll move this closer. That's looking good. Okay, that works. Okay, so let's start planning how this is going to be. So let's put this bar there, and we were going to start with the logo. So the logo, we're going to make sure we're here. Let's see how that looks. So we got to make sure that by the time we're here, this logo needs to be past us. So that's just a position thing. So I'm going to go ahead and hit position and move this in front of camera. Now, here's a problem right here that I just see. So because I'm importing this logo as a vector, as a image file, it's pixelated. So I need to go ahead and import the logos. So let's go ahead and import that. So actually we need that, and I think we're good. So here it is. I'm going to go ahead and copy, paste. This we don't need anymore. We're going to make sure this is a 3D file. This needs to be in front. So let's say right about there. And as you can see, it's still a little pixelated, but how do you fix that? Um, when there's an image file, you'll see that there's a little option for continuously rasterize, and you can't do that with images, but you can with vector files. So as soon as I click on that, you'll see it be 100% crisp. So now let's go ahead and look at that. So that's looking good. Now what I need to do is just scale this, make this smaller. Let's move this here. All right, so what I need to do is when this moves in, I need to move a little bit lower because I kind of want to go through the little arcs. I think that would be a nice little touch. So let's go ahead and move the camera going higher. Oops, there it is. Boom. Oh, that's beautiful. I think that works. Actually, that works so good that I don't even think I need to move this down. Let's see. Let's just turn that off. Oh yeah, I do. Well, it doesn't really matter. You know why? Because I'm going to move more in. So let's go ahead and just move that. Yeah, let's just move all the way. So let's look at that. So obviously that's a little too fast. So let's now move this along 15 seconds. And let's see what that looks like. All right, we got a little issue. The issue is the scale between the bar and the logo is off. So I need to fix that. So this needs to be 0. Now it should work. All right, so I don't like that it's a little bit bottom, but I don't want to move my camera again. So what I'm going to do is just fake it. And by faking it, that means by here, actually by here I need to see, let's try something. Yeah, that's fine. So all I did was just move this higher, and as the camera is moving, the logo is slowly just moving lower and lower and lower. So as the camera passes through, it goes through the hole. Okay, I like that. All right, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and start adding in the clouds. Let's see the back cloud. And this back cloud, we gotta put this behind the bar, and we got to as this is moving here. Now let's take this and move this back because I want to be able to see this. Let's go ahead and add a keyframe on P for position. Let's go ahead and turn on the moon and let's see where this P is. Let me see something for a second. Okay, so what we see here is this is how our setup is. So I know that the moon needs to be way behind. So let me bring that back. That's much better. And I'm going to probably have to scale that higher. So let's go ahead and go back. And let's go ahead, scale. Let's go to the end. And right here, this cloud needs to be out of the way. So now let's just move this lower. Let's just move that lower. Now let's see what that looks like. It'd be nice if we also have that heart kind of mimicking the same place where that is. So let me do that too. That's kind of cool. And what I'll do is you won't see that heart, but you will right here. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to take this heart and I'm going to apply a effect called Simple Choker. This comes with After Effects. And how this works is it eats, it kind of like chokes itself. So if I start clicking this, you start seeing this kind of like eat itself. So I'm going to do it until you don't see anything. And I'm going to add a keyframe here. I'm going to hit U on my keyboard, and that shows me my keyframes. And let's go back to fit. And now I need to plan when do I want this to pop up. So I want it to start popping up around here. So we're going to put this 0 here. And we're going to move all the way to the end. Let's say around here is where you should be able to see this. And I'm going to change this to 0. So now, as you can see, it starts to develop as this passes out. And I'm going to just drag this out a little bit more. And maybe by here, it should be starting to reveal. I'm going to add another effect to this, and that is a blur. Just going to apply a Gaussian blur. And how I'm going to animate this is, let's go all the way to it so it's revealing. And let's blur this. That looks good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the first keyframe. I'm going to go to the first layer and record a keyframe and go all the way to the end. And let's say right about here, we'll go 0. Actually, let's leave a little blur. Let's go like 3. So now let's see what that looks like. Let's go fit the screen. That's kind of cool. All right, let's add in the rest of the clouds. Just adding a little depth to it. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this again, delete the keyframe, and now let's go a little bit closer. Let's scale this down. Let's move this in a little bit more. Let's go 100%. And let's go P for position. We're going to probably have to do this faster, but that's fine. All right, so I think how I'm going to do this is like this. I think for the first 4 seconds, we're just going to see the, oops, sorry, we're going to see the logo. And then let's say for 10 seconds, I'm sorry, at 10 seconds is when we're past that. So let me update this. Where's the logo? Hit P for position. Let's move that there. So we're going to go in. Actually, you know what might be easier is if I just go, if I don't animate this, and I just go through a letter or just the middle, or actually the O. Kind of cool. So how I'm moving is I'm selecting letter C. The letter C is what changes the tool to the camera tool. And this goes in and out. So I'm just moving in. So let's say I'm going to move in like right here. Actually, I think it looks weird that we're going too high. I think we should go lower. Let's just go through the middle. So it should be 1500. All right, I think that works. Now I just have to fix everything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little drift to this. So I like this move. I like this. I think I want to linger around here. And then let's say let's actually go back and move this guy a little bit lower and bring in the Happy Halloween. Which that could just be a font. So let's go ahead and bring that font. Let's make that 3D. So I can delete that. If I want to bend this, let's see how we're going to end this first. Let's just move this in. Let me move this a little bit back. Where's the heart? I think I'm also going to just move. Just going to move a little bit closer too. All right, so I think that's starting to play out a lot better. It's a little jerky here and there, but I can fix all that stuff. And we can see that the heart moves around and there's a little drift there. So I like that. I like that. These guys, I want to move all this back a little bit more. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's move the background more. Let's delete this guy. Let's go this higher. And now let's take this. Oops. Take this back guy and move it back. Scale it lower. Just move this back and down. I kind of wanted a part to seize. I did remember that. So let's start bringing that back. So all I'm doing here is just animating the clouds kind of parting the ways. I know it's a little confusing because you see the Happy Halloween, so let me turn that off for a second. So let's go in a little bit more in so we can see what this looks like. So I don't want this to move just to part just yet, so I want to fix that. So let's see when my camera starts to move. So it moves around the 4-second mark. So I want this to move very, very slow. Then I want it to part. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to take all these keyframes, and as you can see, I'm starting from 0, ending at 15. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move just a little bit closer, just a couple seconds, a couple frames, I'm sorry, a couple frames. And I'm going to record a keyframe here. And all I'm going to do here is just move this to when the camera is about to move. So now what it should look like is we should be moving very, very slow. It's very subtle. And then as soon as the camera starts to pick up, the clouds part their ways. And if we're going to do that, we should probably do the same thing for the back. So it's not as distracting for your eye to see. And I think as we're going through this, maybe what I can do is have the radio kind of dissolve and kind of like fade away as we're going through this. So I'll start to set that up. I'm viewing it at full, that's why it's taking a minute. So let's look at this. So as you can see, it's slowly moving, and then as it starts to move, then the clouds start to part. So I'm going to do the same thing at the end. So I'm going to move just a couple seconds out, record a keyframe, and then move this over here. So I'm kind of digging that. So we need to resolve this. Let's look at this. So I think right about here is when we were seeing the iHeart start to form. So I'm just going to drag this over because this is where our keyframes start to start. So as I start moving, that's perfect. And I'm going to go all the way to the end, and I'm going to extend this by holding Option right bracket. Now I like this, but I don't like that it just stops right there. So how I'm going to fix that is, I like this, but I don't want to start adding more. So I'm going to add a drift. And how do you do that is, I'm going to go ahead and create a null. And a null is it's a layer, invisible layer that pretty much does nothing. But what it does do for me is I can have this camera. Number one, I'm going to make sure this is in 3D. So I enable this little square. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to parent the null to the camera, hit P for position, and I'm going to go ahead and zero out the data. And then I'm going to unparent, and then I'm going to unparent, and then I'm going to parent the camera to the null. So what I pretty much did was I moved the null exactly where the camera is. That's all I did. So now I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to just call this drift. And since my camera is pretty much latching on to whatever null want this drift does, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and hit U for to see my keyframes, and I'm going to go, let's say right about here. I'm going to record a keyframe, and I'm going to go all the way to the end, and here all I'm going to do is just zoom in, just move my position. So what this is doing essentially is this camera is being animated, and at the same time is also attaching to this keyframes. So what's going to happen is, let me just change my resolution for a second. Let me go a little bit lower so you can see. So as we go through, this happens, but the camera is constantly moving, so it's not such an abrupt camera like stop. And I'm going to also fix these keyframes because right now these are all linear keyframes, and I like to tweak some of these. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this, and the next video I'm going to show you is some keyframe animations. So I created this file for you to teach you animation basics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the first one. So all it is just a circle, and let me show you what you can do in After Effects. So here's your project window. This is your composition window. And this is your timeline, and here are just different things that you can start adding on to things like brush, libraries, paint, etc. For the most part, we're going to just focus on these three windows. So what you have here is your project windows. This is where you can import your projects by either going to File, Import. You could import multiple files. You could also double click, and that also opens up the import function. This is to create a new composition, to create a new folder, the interpret dialog box. So what I have here is a shape layer, and as you can see there's a triangle. That means that there's more options available for use. So we're going to go ahead and click on that, And as soon as we click on this, we can see what kind of options we have. We see a transform, and we also see a context. For the most part, everything that you add on here. So let's go ahead and create a new layer. So we're going to go create new, and we're going to create a new solid. We're just going to make this, let's say, blue, and we're going to go ahead and hit OK. As you can see, it automatically created a new layer. So let's go ahead and move this. As you can see, they have the transform. And if you open it up, you'll see that it has the exact same thing. So what can you do here? Let's turn this off for a second. And what you can do is we have our anchor point, our position, our scale, rotation, and our opacity. And you will notice that there is a stopwatch next to it. And that is to record a keyframe. So to record a keyframe, all you have to do is just click on it and it would be highlighted. And you'll notice that it adds a little triangle in your timeline. And I'm going to go ahead and move this dialog box or this little cursor and move this all the way to the end. And as you can see, it added a little keyframe. So now I'm going to take this position, and there's a couple ways on moving your layer. One way is by clicking and dragging. And as soon as I do that, you'll notice that it automatically added a keyframe. My layer moved, and I have a keyframe. I have two keyframes now. So now if I want to play this, let's move this all the way to the end. And to play this, you can hit the spacebar and you'll see this animating. But the spacebar is only just a preview. What you really want to do is you want to make sure you're rendering this. So how do we do that is just move this all the way to the top and you'll see a preview button. We're just going to go ahead and click on this. And it tells you what the shortcut is to play this. So spacebar is the shortcut to do that. So as you can see, we have two keyframes. So now let's go ahead and do the same thing for the bottom one. Actually, label these wrong. This is 4, this is 5. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing by adding a keyframe. So instead of going over here and just toggling this over, there's shortcuts that you can use when you're selected on a layer. As you can see, there's an anchor point, position, scale, rotation, and opacity. Well, there's a shortcut to go to each one. So let's say I want to go to position. The shortcut for that would be the letter P. And the anchor point would be the letter A. The scale would be the letter S. The R would be rotation. The O won't be O. It would be T for opacity. And there you have it. So we need position. So we're going to go ahead and hit P for position. And I'm going to go ahead and click on the stopwatch to record a keyframe. Let's move all the way to the end. And instead of clicking and dragging, the other way of moving a keyframe is by just clicking and dragging the actual keyframe and just moving this over. And I'm going to start animating the one underneath. So another way of adding a keyframe would be, instead of selecting just a P, what you can do is if you hold down Option P or Option and whatever the letters of the shortcuts, it automatically adds a keyframe. So now if I go all the way to the end, and I don't need to do that again, but I'm just going to go ahead and just move this down. But now what I can do is I can select both of these and hit Option P, and now they both record a keyframe. So now let's go ahead and I'm just clicking and dragging, and I'm going to go ahead and select all and toggle this. And another way of just looking at the keyframes is you can select the letter U, and that shows you the keyframes that you have enabled. So I'm going to go to the beginning of the frame, and I'm going to RAM preview this. And as you can see, my camera, as you can see, I recorded keyframes and they're all the exact same. So how do I make the keyframes come alive? And by doing that, After Effects is a very powerful tool. And there's some presets that that's pre-built that you can automatically add to your keyframes to enhance some of this. So I'm going to start doing that. So I'm going to leave the first one as just the original. And I'm going to add some type on here just so I can show you. Being that this is going to be the Halloween takeover, let's just keep this type there. So the first one is a linear keyframe. So let's go ahead and turn these guys off so I don't want to confuse you guys. And let's just move a little bit closer so we can see this. So the first one, what we have is a linear keyframe, and all that's doing is that's two keyframes that's going the same constant speed from the moment it starts to the moment it lands. Now the second one that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select the keyframes. We're going to go ahead and hit the letter P for position, and we're going to select this first one. And what we're going to do is we're going to right click or control click. We're going to go to keyframe assistance, and we're going to choose something called easy ease out. The shortcut would be these set of keyframes or these set of keys. And what you'll notice is if I move this cursor around, number one, it's not moving at the same speed anymore, but the actual icon of it just changed. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So this would be this is an easy out. And let's go ahead and preview that, see what that looks like. So what you'll notice is at the same time, they both leave and they both land at the same time, but what happens in the middle is what you have control over. So what I told layer 2 to do, or the little red circle to do, is I want you to take its time before you leave. Um, before you leave. Now you can do the same thing on the other end. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. I'm going to duplicate this, just move this to the bottom. And this, we're going to call this the easy in. And by doing that, we're going to hit the letter P. We're going to select the last frame. We're going to control click. And we're going to do easy ease in. And now you can see it's almost like a little greater than less than sign. So now let's look at what that looks like. So now you can see it's almost like it kind of jump starts and then it eases into its landed position. So it jumps right out so we can slowly descend into its final destination. So now let's just mix both of these together and let's see what we get. I may have to move this a little bit lower so we can see. And let's take this easy in. And the other one is easy ease. And that would be pretty much what this is pretty much. It's the easy in and easy out at the same time. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So now, as you can see, this linear is just constant all the way, but this easy out takes its time getting out. This one takes its time coming in. This one does a little bit of the both. So what you're going to get is in the middle is going to be like a quick little speed. And if you want to see what that looks like, there's a little button here. It's called the graph editor. If you select on that, And oops, let me just go back. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to select the keyframes, and as soon as I select on this, what you'll notice is this is my graph editor, and it's showing me a path, and this path is a linear path. And let's just make sure I show, just want to change something for a second. Yep, okay. So what all I did was I changed it to speed because I wanted to see the speed line, not the value line. So right now, as you can see, my position, it's pretty much a linear. And if I go to the one that was the easy out, as you can see, that arc is now a slow arc and then it's whipping fast. And if I go to the second one, you can see that it does the opposite effect. And if I go to the easy ease, you can see that now it's kind of given an arc. This is where it ramps up, and then this is where it slows down. So now what we think the fifth one would be? Well, the fifth one would be a custom one. So a custom one would just be, if I go ahead and hit the letter P, and if I select this, well, now I can start editing from within the graph editor itself. By just selecting the little keyframe, you'll notice that there's yellow handles. And now that I have the yellow handles, I can move up and down and move this little arc however I want. So I'm going to go ahead and just move this down. And I'm going to select this guy and just move this down. And you can have the same keyframes or the same options here. This is pretty much easy ease. So if I click on that, and actually I got to select both and then go easy ease. As you can see, that is the same as this guy. But I kind of like this, but I want a little bit more control. I want it to really whip in there. So if I select this and if I just move this a little bit in and I do the same thing for this, what that's creating is that's now creating a steeper arc. So let's see what that looks like. And let's go ahead and duplicate this. And this is call it custom because that's what it is. And let's look at this. So what it's doing is it's slowly coming out. It's getting a little bit faster, then it's really whipping in. So as you can see, uh, I have the same solids leaving at the same time, landing at the same time, but each and every one is different. So the same kind of keyframe manipulation goes. Um, so this keyframes that you have, what you can do is now the same applies with cameras, with lights, with anything. This was just position, but you can do the same thing with scale, with rotation, and vice versa.